Welcome, everyone, to Dial the Gates, the Stargate Oral History Project. My name is David Reed. Thank you so much for being here for this episode. Let me know if I sound a little bit, if my levels sound a little bit low. I'm seeing some different settings here that I'm used to because we changed a few things around. Gary Jones, Chief Master Sergeant Walter Harriman, Stargate SG-1. How are you, sir?
Great. Awesome. Yeah. Retired, from the SGC. So I'm just hanging out in my cool thrift store t-shirt finds.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you back as always. We've had a bit of a kick in the hoo-ha with the cancellation of the show. We were all excited that this thing was returning, and then it just was like, seriously? So we're kind of, I'm not sure what's going to happen next, and that's kind of where we're all at right now. So we're looking forward to other activities like being able to join each other at conventions and cruises and things like that. What's been going on in your world?
Well, I write for a comedy show on CBC Radio up here in Canada. It's called The Debaters. It's a very, very funny show that you can not live stream, but you can go on cbc.ca, and then you go to their streaming and you hit Debaters. And what it is it's The Debaters is a debating show with 2 debates per half-hour show, but each topic, a varied topic, is debated by 2 stand-up comedians. So, yeah, there it is, Steve Patterson. Yeah, there it is, right there. Steve, we're going to Edmonton, and that's Steve is the host. And you can just click on that and then scroll down and pick from any number of debates and just have a listen. Very, very funny. All the stand-up comedians write their own material, and I'm a writer for other stuff on it. But it's a great gig. And it's been going for like 21 seasons, so it's pretty amazing to have a radio show that has lasted that long. It's kind of like it's become sort of iconic in Canada now, so it's fantastic. And I was there from the very first workshop when the creator, who's a friend of mine, had this idea to do a comedy debating show. And so he knew that because I was an improviser, and my mind sort of worked in that way. He said, I need to just workshop this. So we went into the basement of the CBC and got a couple of podiums, and then he took notes, and he was like, oh, try this, try that, try this. And then it got on the air. So many people have come and gone on the show. I'm the longest running person on the show. So 21 seasons, pretty great.
Wow,
that's a good gig.
Working.
That's a steady gig. Yeah. As far as acting goes, it's really odd up here. Like that's not really, I hate to say it, it's not really happening much anymore.
The industry's been eviscerated.
I do audition, but nothing.
In terms of getting work, not so much.
Yeah.
What do they say in Russia? We pretend to work and they pretend to pay us. So.
Right.
Gosh.
So
yeah, it's frustrating, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So
what do you think it is? Let's just cut through the crap. Not that we crap each other, but
No.
What do you think's going on?
I don't know. I don't know. I can only audition for the parts that I'm suited for.
Sure.
So I'm 68 now, so my age range has gone from like I can play 60 to 75, pushing it, I guess. But I liken it to I use this sort of example of when I started out. I started out 40 years ago. I could play the part of teachers, and then I moved into principal, like the school principal, and then I moved into school board member, like
I played doctors, and then I played surgeons, and I played head of surgery.
Yeah, who sits in an office, and so I've kind of I've moved along, much in the same way that the producers of Stargate, every time I came back from a break in a new season, I'd have new ribbons, and they'd promote me, and I'd go, "What? Oh,
what I do this for?"
I go, "Why?" And they go, "Oh, you just are. You just are." I'm telling you that was the. Whenever I questioned anything, they'd be like, "What? Oh, don't worry about it." And I remember there was one episode when I ended up, my character Walter ended up
driving the ship, Prometheus Unbound. You're piloting an Alcash,
an Alcash. And I remember I was super excited about doing this. I was like, where has Walter gone? Like they're really giving Walter great stuff to do. And it was being directed by Andy Makita, who's a really good buddy of mine. And we were, preparing to shoot the scene, and I'm sitting in the seat, and it's all just like plywood, you know what I mean? Spray painted plywood. And I sit in the seat, and I go, Andy, how do I know how to fly this thing? Like, how do I, like, you've got me here. How do I know what I'm doing? And he goes, you just do. You just do. And I go, so I'm not looking for the owner's manual in the glove compartment or anything like that.
How do you engage the hyperdrive on this thing? Where's the ignition? The rational explanation is he does more than just sit in that chair. As they bring technology back, he's one of the technicians that learns how it works. So, that's it makes, I mean, the greater thing about it is that there's no reason to hire 100 different technicians that have 100 different specialties. These are the people that we send with off world, because Walter would be stationed at SGC. But except in this case, Hammond actually says, I'm taking Walter with me. So it's a plus for you and us who are fans of you that you just move him over here. Because at the beginning of the show, Jack didn't know how to fly a death glider, but by season 6 he does. Yeah. They captured them and they learned how to do it. And it's probably Walter who was teaching him how. Like, I'm not going to do a barrel roll or anything. You can do that, but I'm going to show you how to turn it off and on again. Yeah. So and that's what the technician does.
His problem was finding reverse. He was like, and I
think that's Independence Day. They just flipped the thing.
I kept saying, Colonel, just push down on the stick and then move it over. And
that's right. Or to General Landry, you have to hold the button down, sir. I like yelling at people. I don't get a chance to do it here. Everyone knows what they're doing. Oh man.
The other thing I remember that just killed me when I was playing the Alcash was that I had to pretend that I was shooting, lasers and whatever I was firing from it. And I was staring at a Teamster leaning against the brick wall eating a donut.
They eat while rolling? Wow.
That was my target. My target. Teamster in the crosshairs.
Put the donut right. Oh, perfect. Oh, yeah. Beautiful. That's funny, man. We're live with Gary Jones on Dial the Gate. If you're in the YouTube chat right now, go ahead and submit your questions to the moderators for free. Just put a question mark in the front of it, and it'll help them identify it. So thank you, guys. Dude, have you continued to paint? Is there anything that you can show us off in this? I look forward to paint time with Gary Jones.
Well, that's my kids' show that got canceled, but let's not talk about that. I did. I think from a long time ago, I did send you a whole bunch of paintings. So you sort of, you pretty much got those with you. Unless you need me to resend them, I could. But what have I been doing? I mean, do you want me to send you anything? Like
if
just
there's anything that you have that's recent, I'm trying to.
Oh, I'll send you. I'll just flip through my phone, and I can just fire off.
Yeah, zap them to me.
Just text them to
Yeah,
you.
okay.
What's
I can.
What's good?
If you. Sorry, we should have done this beforehand. Yeah, go ahead and do that, and then I'll Dropbox them to myself. So.
Okay.
Yeah. But it'll take about 30 seconds.
Yeah. So this one that I'm about to send you is of a my son got me starting to draw again years ago by asking me to draw him some rap artists, and this picture, that ring is a mask worn by a rap artist named MF Doom. And so my son said, "Hey, can you do me a picture of MF Doom?" And I looked through and I thought, "Oh, there's all these pictures that people have seen. What would be really cool to draw?" And hands are very difficult to draw, and so I gave myself the challenge of drawing that. So I do a lot of sketches, and
wow, dude.
so I like
this is so cool. Look at that.
Oh, and I'll show you another painting I did. I'm going to send you a painting right now of the guy that I co-write the debaters with. His name's Graham Clark. He's a very, very funny guy, and he did a 24-hour stand-up comedy gig where he was the only one on stage. We were all sitting to the side writing jokes for him, and I brought this painting that I did of him, a portrait. He didn't even know. I showed up and I said, I said, "Graham, if you want to auction this off and get some more money for the club that you're trying to get money for," I said, "feel free to." And when he saw it, he said, "No way, I'm taking that and I'm going to hang it in my."
He wants it for himself.
Yeah. So this guy's name is Graham Clark, and this is a painting I did of him from a photograph I took of him one time when he was on stage.
Send that along.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Pull this here. Wow. You know who it reminds me of? It reminds me of Jay Brazeau.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he has his beard. But this beard is beautiful.
Oh yeah, just Graham's known for his beard. And if you like, the other thing that I've been getting into, which I'm really happy with, is street photography.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I went to Paris. I was in Paris for a couple of days back in 2024, and I'll send you just a couple of these black and white shots that I took in Paris. And then I had a showing of
wow.
Yeah, I had a showing, and it was called Paris 2 Jours. So it was like 2 days, So here's a I'm just sending you a couple of my black and whites, and so I also do commissions, and I sell these, But yeah, that's that's also what I'm doing, which is like I said, street photography, painting, all sorts of stuff like that,
Pull these here.
It really, for me, what it is, David, it's here's a little painting.
Before we move past to that, let me pull up the. I'm transmitting to myself the.
Okay.
the images here.
I'd love people to see these black and
Yeah,
whites.
showing that now. Just a moment. Okay.
And these and the ones these
Here we go.
black and whites that you're about to show were just taken with my iPhone, and then
Oh,
just
wow, yeah. Those
So just
filters
have
are amazing if you know what you're doing.
yeah, and believe it or not, this picture that you're looking at right now was at the base, like somewhere around the base of the Eiffel Tower, and
Oh,
we
cool.
went to the Eiffel Tower, and I said to myself, I am taking no pictures of the Eiffel Tower because what picture of the Eiffel Tower could I take that would be so amazing? So instead of looking up, I looked down, and
Yeah.
this picture right here was as is. Pair of high-heeled stilettos below a water fountain, and then a poster that says "The Gospel Dream," and I was like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, you
Like,
saw something in that spot that, just
Yeah,
other people
and
would just
I've
see.
seen-
There's street dirt down there, and
yeah, street dirt, and it's like it just amazed me that they would be left there. Like that's the kind of stuff that catches my eye. So
yeah, that's really cool. Oh,
and
wow.
so this, believe it or not, I can tell you kind of a cool little interesting story about this. We were in the Louis Vuitton Foundation, which is, and the whole building is designed by the iconic American architect Frank Gehry, who's since passed away. Anyway, we go inside here, and it's full of Picassos and Monets and Jeff Koons, like all high end art. But because it was the Louis Vuitton Foundation, they dress their security people up in
Yeah.
just really smoking hot suits. And as I was looking at them, they started to become art to me.
Yep.
So I started surreptitiously taking shots of the security people.
Don't mind me, guys.
In the Louis Vuitton, and one of them called me out. One of them called me out. She came over to me. She said, "Did you take pictures of me? Take a picture of me?" And I said, "Yes, I did." And she said, "Okay, let me see it. Delete it. Get rid of it right now." And I said, "Okay, I'm sorry." And she was pretty upset with me. But I wanted to see them just in their working environment because they looked beautiful to me.
Yeah,
right?
you can't tell who this guy is. This is really cool.
And before I left, I went up to her and I said, "Look, I just want to apologize for making you uncomfortable. My intention wasn't to do that at all." I said, and I explained to her about how I'm an artist and a photographer and I see things slightly differently. And I said, "You and your coworkers became art to me. People come in here to look at the art, and you are the people who are kind of ignored." And she was like, "Yeah." And I said, "So, in my eye, you guys became like you were
Part
the
of the
beauty
exhibit.
of this place." And she, you could see her. She just softened, and she said, "Why didn't you tell me? I would have posed for you." And I said, "Yeah, and that's exactly what I didn't want you to do. I
That's
wanted
right.
to capture you working, but being kind of like invisible, but I could see you." So it was like, for me, it was this idea of photographing, seeing the unseen and photographing them. And
Hammond says the same thing to Emmett Bregman in Heroes. The cameras change the nature of things just by being there, and that's the point that he was getting at.
yeah,
So.
yeah. And then I was going to just send you this.
Oh, we're not done.
Oh, go ahead. Show me, and I'll tell you. This.
Oh, look at that.
This killed me. It was like, what is this saying? Like, you can't enter unless you're a little girl or a man
with a peg leg,
missing most of his left leg.
And one's longer than the other. Look at that. That's so weird. I can understand if they were the same length. I don't understand.
I died when I saw that. I was like, what?
Yeah,
So I had
that's
to take a
weird.
photo of it. Yeah, and these and a bunch of these photos that you're showing, the ones with the rain. I mean, this one has a guy. If you zoom in on or zoom out on this one, sorry, zoom out, you'll see a guy running. Can you
He's on
see him?
the right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's on the right, and he's just running down the street. And what I loved about this picture was that he's on one side, and there's just a garbage can counterweighting it on the other. And so that I just love that shot,
Mm-hmm.
very French.
Oh, how cool is that?
And this shot, people just go, oh, it's like Henry Cartier-Bresson's, there's a very similar shot where somebody's skipping across a puddle. That wasn't my intention when I took that picture, but what I was, we were only there for 2 days. One day was sunny, and the next day was raining. And my girlfriend had said to me, I didn't bring a rain shell, so I ran out of our Airbnb, and I just was running around looking for a sports store to buy her a rain shell, and then all these photos appeared for me. So I was just clicking pictures in the rain, and I just
Wow.
love the way. And okay, so this is on the bank of the Seine River, and again, if you look at the way I love composition. So this one is split with a tree. There's a guy on the other side. He's looking at me. And again, it's counterweighted by this heavy metal ring that's that I guess they would tie boats up to many years ago. So those are all still there, the ancient, the Seine River,
Wow.
So,
That's so cool,
yeah.
man.
Oh, thanks, David. Thank you.
That's really
Yeah,
cool. You have an eye. You see
I'm really
things.
happy with those, and I'm going to send you one quick painting,
Sure.
recent one that I did, and this is about 10 by 10, and it was friends of ours have a house in France, the south of France, and we were driving back to their house from just being out in the country. And as we came around the back way to get into this place, I looked over and I saw this little, I don't know what it was, this little building up in a field. And when we parked, I walked back up and I took a bunch of photographs. And then I came home and I painted this, and I gave it to a friend of mine, so she's got it hanging in her place. But it was cool to do a little. It's like a little landscape, and I don't always do landscapes. So
Wow. Wow, I love your use of color.
thank you, David.
This is
Thank
so
you.
cool.
Yeah.
I love nerding out on art. I can't get into all
do
the
you?
technical stuff, but I mean, I love
David, I
the
am
nature
not.
of just picking a subject and then having weight and counterweight in it, rules of thirds, anything that's
Yeah.
not symmetrical, because I'm so drawn to symmetry when I create that I have to keep on telling myself, unbalance your focus, and you get stuff like this.
So it's great to talk to you about, like, not many people know about the rule of thirds, people who are the untrained eye or whatever. But if you look at this one, it's like it's cut in three. There's like sky, field, and then
Yeah.
the grass down in front.
And then
So
offset
there's the
vertically.
third,
Yeah.
offset with that little building in the background.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes, for whatever reason, our brains respond with a more pleasing approach than to something that is bound by constraints and boxed in.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. That's really cool.
And thank you, David. I appreciate that. And the thing is, people might not know about the rule of thirds, but what I think what people inherently know, that they inherently know the rule of thirds without knowing that they know the rule of thirds, because
Right, they just can't name it.
They can't name it. They just look at it and they go, "Oh yeah, I get that. That word, I sort of, on some level, I understand it, but they don't know why." But of course, the artist knows exactly what they're doing in the creation of the piece, and
yeah, they can be more deliberate in the act of creation, to go out of their way to do something like that. That's more pleasing than something that's just random. So.
And then I guess the other thing that I was that I was doing is I've been drawing dog portraits.
Oh, you saved this to last. I think I've seen the one that you sent of Rick's dog, RDA's dog, from a few years ago. That was cool.
His
the border
dog,
collie.
Andy. That was the first dog that I ever. Oh, do you want to see some of my old sketches? Like, I don't think you've ever seen these, my old pencil sketches.
We can look at a few, but I got some fan questions for you as well. So I want to just be mindful of your time.
Yeah, okay, sure. Well, I'll send you, what I'm about to send you is a pencil sketch I did of Ansel Adams, the famous photographer. And
black and whites, landscapes.
Yeah, and of Richard Dean Anderson, a sketch that a portrait I did of him, and then the next one is a Tibetan monk, and then we can just move on to questions.
Okay.
But have a look at these and see what you think.
Okay.
So good to talk to you, David. It's
absolutely, man.
Always a pleasure.
These are cool. Let me pull these up here real quick. Send that to myself. Okay. All right. Oh, these are wild. Okay. Someone's a little scary. All right, here and then here. All right, so let's start off with Ansel.
Yeah. So I have to say that this sketch, this picture of Ansel Adams was taken by one of my all-time favorite photographers, a guy named Arnold Newman. And Arnold Newman was one of the first photographers to shoot. He shot like artists, actors, philosophers, writers, like anybody in the arts, creative arts. And I have a book of his called One Mind's Eye, and he's got all these insanely amazing black and white photographs. And so this picture of Ansel Adams, I drew from his book.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm pretty happy with that. And then the next
someone will recognize here.
There's a picture of Richard Dean that I drew. And
is this from a photo?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I usually, and you know what with this one in particular, I'll tell you what I'm really happy about is the hands. Hands are so hard to draw.
Why is that? Even for AI?
I think it maybe has something to do with just the number of bones and how the skin sits on the bones and makes, and when the creases that occur, because the hands are constantly moving, right? So there's all these different layers and little pockets and stuff. Their hands and feet are hard to draw. Anyway, but I'm pretty happy with this picture, and I've got a bunch of these at home that I had copied and made. So, and then this last one, this monk.
This looks like something out of Stephen King.
This monk literally looked like this. I don't know how old this guy was, but he looked like a Shar-Pei, like his, like he had these folds, and he was kind of like he was staring into the camera in this really curious kind of way, and I
was this your photo?
I did this from a photograph.
You did this from not from your photograph, okay?
Not from my photograph. No, I found this in a book somewhere. But again, what some of the things that I tend to draw are challenges to me.
Yeah.
And it was like, how can I draw the creases in this guy's face? look, it was just amazing. So I was
I'll
pretty
never
happy with that.
forget the conversation that we had. Gary takes commissions, as he's already said. And if anyone wants a commission from Gary, just email me at dialthegateshow@gmail.com. We've done one in the past where someone's father, they submitted a photo to you of his father. And we had a conversation about the manipulation of the light through one of his lenses, and like how everything inside of that lens was distorted. And it was clearly like because you asked me, what's the most interesting part of that image? And it's like, right, everything that's happening in there, because the world is inverted and everything is like weird. So you have to see all of that to detect all of that in order to transfer it to another medium besides the photograph. So you just see stuff, dude.
And as soon as I saw that, like, because he had thick lenses in his glasses, and his head was slightly turned, so it was enough that, sometimes if you look and if somebody's got really thick lenses, the shape of their head kind of like squeezes in. It was like that, and it was just this pocket of light that was on the one side, and I just fixated on that. I couldn't stop staring at that, and that was the kind of thing that got me. That was the thing that got me. Oh, there it is. Oh my God, David.
Isn't that wild?
David. It's like so right there.
Yeah, she submitted this, and then he created this. Yeah.
And that was me just I had to pencil sketch it first. And
wow. That is so cool.
Yeah. And I mean, if I could find the finished product, I'd
got it.
Oh, you do?
Who do you think you're talking to?
Oh.
So, yeah.
And she just loved it. She was super happy with it. It was this young lady, and it was her father-in-law actually, and she just loved it. As soon as she told me when it arrived, they took it out, they hung it up in their place right away.
Aww.
And I have to say, I'm not a trained artist. I didn't go to art school, so
you're trained from life.
I tend to I make it up as I go along. So often I don't know what I'm doing, but they seem to turn out, Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So the thing is, you were asking me about acting and what am I up to. I noticed that I have the ability to pivot, and I don't know if that comes with age. Young people getting into the business now, I don't know how they do it. I don't know what is in their, like, how they move forward if they're not getting any acting work. If they go, well, I'm an actor and I'm just not getting any work, so
right,
what do I do?
Yeah.
And I always,
how do you not get discouraged?
From years ago, ended up writing a Fringe play with a friend of mine that I improvised with, Sean McDonald, very, very funny guy. And we had never written a play before, and we wrote a play, and it got into the Fringe, and then it got held over at the Fringe. This is in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got picked up by a local, kind of like a like a real theater. And the artistic director of the theater came to us and said, "This is obviously really, really funny, but because it was a Fringe play, it's a one act, right?" And he said,
"So it's shorter."
It's shorter. So it was like we maxed out, like, you could, like, of these Fringe plays, the max you could do is 75 minutes. And when we wrote it, how kind of ballsy is this of us? We said, well, it's going to be funny. So even though we have 75 minutes of stage time, we only should write an hour and 5 minutes of script, because we have to assume we're going to get at least 10 minutes of laughs. That's how we wrote it. We said we're going to get 10. We have to. If we don't get 10 minutes worth of laughs sprinkled out throughout this play, it's not worth writing. So we did. It killed. It was very, very funny. And we were in it.
Killed in a good way.
Sean and I were in it with two other actors. It got held over at the Vancouver Fringe, and the artistic director of the Arts Club Theater came and saw it, and he goes, "Yeah, it's obviously really funny. People love it." And he said, "I'd like to put it into my stage." And he goes, "But can you can you make it into a 2-act? Because I need an intermission to sell booze. We were like, yeah, we can.
Okay.
We can do that.
So you doubled its length, or did you take some from the first act and transfer it?
No, we didn't double the length. We just went through the 1 act. Found a natural break where the first act would end. Then there's an intermission. Then they come back.
I see.
We made it even funnier. We were like, oh my God, we get to like expand on this. It was even funnier. Then so he puts it on his stage. It gets held over for like, I don't know, 2 months or whatever in the summer.
Because it's doing well.
And then it won an award for best. This was back in 1994 when I was first starting writing, and it won the local theater award for best play of 1994.
What was the title?
It was called World's Greatest Guy, and it was amazing to go.
I would like to read it.
Writing a Fringe play to sort of being on stage accepting an award. It was like, because you don't write for that. You don't write assuming that you're going to get an award. But the fact that it went that far was so cool.
That's cool, man.
That's what I tell them. I also do some teaching, and I tell all my acting students, I say, you gotta branch out. I say, how many of you go to the art gallery? And it's rare. Maybe one person in the class. I go, you should be going to the art gallery all the time. I said, because when you go inside the art gallery, it's like you're in the nuclear reactor of creativity, and you're seeing what somebody dreamed up. And I said, I go all the time.
You're opening your mind.
Unbelievably inspiring. And I look at things that I go, oh my God, I never thought that somebody would paint that or do a sculpture of that. And it just completely jump starts my brain. And they are always surprised because they're like film students, you know. That's
their mode. That's what they're focused on. It doesn't occur to them to go outside of that per se.
No. So it's really interesting when I get that response where they can't. They're so surprised when I tell them to be doing other creative things that have nothing to do with film on the surface. I said, but everything goes into the melting pot. Something you'll see will inspire, like you'll think of a story, or you'll think of a character, or something will pop into your mind that
completely unrelated.
That was so unrelated, that wasn't there before, and now you have this thing that is taking over, you know, that you can write about, you know. So I do tend to do that.
Before we leave and go to fan questions, this may seem so mundane, but where do you think ideas come from? I mean, I run 6 days a week, sometimes 5, 3 miles. And I try not, if I put on music or a podcast, I often find myself it just becomes noise because I'm thinking and I'm thinking and I'm thinking. And once I get done, I think it's also the process of running and getting the blood flowing through the brain, increasing the capacity in your brain to pump the blood when running. I get so creatively stimulated. Like once I'm done, pop in the shower, and I immediately have to get to work on something that I came up with or that was augmenting what I was working on while I was running. Right. And it's just, there's something about, I'm not comparing this to an art gallery, but there's something about taking yourself out of your place. In my case, it's going around the block.
Yeah.
And in that space is the act of creation. Something is happening in there,
right?
Where our brains wander. Where do you think things come from for you? Where do you feel that? Obviously, an art gallery, and exposing yourself to other people's creativity.
Well,
but what do you think's happening?
It's just one of the places that I go to just to get stimulated. But if I'm by myself, I used to think it's a great question, David, because I actually had a conversation with another friend of mine, another creative friend of mine, the other day about this very question. And I told him that I used to think that my ideas came from me, like came from within me. What that ended up doing was giving me this sort of like fault, like a sort of sense of ownership, like I
Mm,
own the idea. And I used to think that for a while until I started teaching and I realized that I kind of went, I will never run out of ideas. I had to consider myself like an idea factory.
mhm.
And I said, so where do they come from? And I swear to God, David, my whole attitude changed. I feel like now, rather than being the source of an idea, I believe I'm just the conduit for it. So in other
Mhm.
words, ideas that are out there floating in the air,
Mhm.
they're all out there, and they choose to, for whatever reason, drop into me. They drop into me, and I because every time I go, I get an idea. I go, oh, that's kind of interesting. I feel like, oh, an idea just dropped in. I'll mull it over and then I will start to put it down on paper or go to my computer and start making notes. And so I now see it as something that drops into me and comes through me and sort of leaves me and becomes whatever it becomes through my own personal stamp, right? But what was great about discovering that was that it means that as long as I'm open to ideas, there's an infinite number of ideas that can drop into me. Some of them go nowhere. Others
Right.
kind of like you go down rabbit holes and they turn into something else, whatever. But it's this idea of taking your ego out of it,
Mhm.
not thinking, oh, this is my idea. Because when I was teaching film students at the Vancouver Film School to pitch ideas, I said, okay, you're going to do a 2-minute elevator pitch. How many of you have had an idea that you've been carrying around? So many of them put their hands up, and I said, what have you done with it, or have you shared it with anybody? And they go, no, I'm not. I don't want to share it because somebody will steal my idea.
Oh. Oh.
And I said, so in other words, you have this idea in your head that nothing has happened with. You've done nothing
Right.
with it. It's just an idea in your head. And I said, so how are you going to get it out? And they were like, oh, they didn't know, right? And I said, you have to get it out.
You do.
You have to. You can't hold on to it just thinking, oh, this is my idea. Somebody's going to steal it. And I go, even if somebody stole your idea, they would not be able to do it the same way you would be able to do it. So you have to just let it go and just give ideas away. When I'm with friends now, if they're working on something and they need a title or something, I go, oh, how about this? I could just give stuff away.
Mhm.
Not with no idea of no expectation of
Reciprocation.
that
Yeah.
reciprocation, remuneration, nothing. I just go, what about this? Let me help you write a log line. I'm good at doing those. And I just do it. I just do it because people who are stuck in the creative process, they need help. If I can help them, and I just give it away. And the more you give away, the more it comes to you.
Yeah.
So
That conduit is open.
that's kind of how I do it now. It's,
A couple of points to that. Number one is something that I brought this up once on the show before. Melinda Snodgrass, who wrote Next Generation episode, The Measure of Man, where Data is put on trial for whether or not he's sentient. Season 2 episode, amazing. Before she wrote that, she was hanging on to that idea and not wanting to share it. George R.R. Martin, of all people, was a friend of hers, told her, don't hoard your silver bullet. Which, I mean, you run that through. It's like, because you're going to have more of them as long as you creatively
get it out of the chamber.
That's exactly right. The other thing is
saying, like, if you don't get it out of the chamber, you can't reload.
That's right. You can't reload. And there, like you say, there will be others in there. Even if you don't think so, you have to trust yourself to allow that to happen to you.
You have to just believe
That's it.
And you got to know it.
The other thing is, Michael Shanks and I are launching a new retrospective YouTube channel / podcast, and I wasn't happy with the names that we were coming up with together. So I suggested to him, let's invite the fan community to come up with a name for us. And 2 days ago, we selected one, and it's one that the fans came up with, and we'll be revealing that soon. So we've already got the artwork for it put out all together. It all fell into place once we assigned that. So it was like the flip side of it, except the fact that we are not the ones who are supposed to come up with this title. Let's give it to the fan community, and they didn't. And then all the other pieces fell into place once we found that piece.
Yeah, it's almost
the music,
like
everything.
It's almost like you opened it up in reverse, like you.
Yeah, we went ass backwards into it.
Yeah, and that I love. I love because again, that is you and Michael taking the ego out of it, going, no, it's our podcast. We have to come up with a name. So you open it up to the fans, and lo and behold, they show up, right?
And it's simple. It's not complicated, and it harkens back to the character's story. So a big pivot. So
great. I love hearing that, David.
It's cool, man.
You and I have never talked about art and photography and this kind of thing before. We have never talked, and I'm just blown away by like how much we can connect talking about art. I had no idea, because most of my time with you has been spent, a lot of times talking about Stargate and that kind of thing. You've been very supportive of my painting, but just hearing you talk about like photography, painting, the rule of thirds, and where do ideas come from, I'm like, you're completely in my wheelhouse. And I had no idea until now. It's really great to find that out.
Hey, I'm always thrilled to have you on, man. There's always so much to learn. So, and you go down to the base of these ideas, and these things really are at the roots. So, I've got some fan questions. Are we good on time?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm good.
Okay. And Kylie B, how was your audition for Stargate SG-1? You talked about this a really long time ago. We brought it up right down to you shared it with Chris on the show that Chris and I did, but you didn't share that beat here of Mario opening the door after the audition and saying something and shutting the door. I'd love to get that little beat of the story here. And Jonathan Glasser was like, don't sigh, during the chevrons, and just like playing. I'm doing this audition and you just want me to say Chevron 1 encoded, Chevron 2 encoded. Is this good enough for you, Jonathan? Chevron 3 encoded.
It was. I look back fondly at the process, but going through it, like all these pieces were in place, but I was like, okay, how's this gonna go? Originally my agent said they're gonna make the show they're gonna make a TV show of Stargate from the movie. She said, have you seen the movie? And I was like, yeah, I've seen the movie. And she said, well, watch it again, because there's a guy in there who's like a technician. He wears a Hawaiian shirt, and he's like this kind of like, hey, you need me more than I need you kind of thing to the Air Force, that kind of thing, like a real tech genius, right?
For the record, his name was Mitch.
Oh, was it? Oh, my God. So I watched the movie, and I was like, okay, I can play that guy. He's very kind of off the cuff and a bit, and so I get the sides, and the sides, this was what fans love hearing, because the irony is how many times over 10 years I said Chevron 1 encoded, Chevron 2. How many times? So I get the sides, and that's what it says. Like, those are my lines in the audition. And it's me at the thing going Chevron 1 encoded, and then they'd cut away to like some battle, the gunfight going off. Then they come back to me, Chevron 2 encoded, and they cut away, and then Michael Shanks is doing something, and every time they come back to me, all I'm saying is Chevron 1, Chevron 2, Chevron 3, and then Chevron 7 locked. And because the show hadn't been made, there's a lot of shows you can audition for. Like if you were auditioning for the X-Files, you already know the tone of the show, right? So I had no idea what the tone of Stargate SG-1 was going to be. So I just went on a wing and a prayer, and I thought, I got to show up with something. What am I any good at? I'm good at comedy. So maybe I'll make this funny. Oh my God. And Brad Wright, Michael Greenberg were there. Jonathan Glasner was not in that initial
Oh,
audition. But when I walked in, Mario Azzopardi was directing it, right?
that's right.
So, and and as fate would have it, he had just directed me maybe couple of weeks prior in an episode of Outer Limits, where
Hmm.
I was like a ballistics expert, and I had to come in, deliver this bunch of, you know, jargon about ballistics, and then leave. And I did it in like maybe 2 takes. He was super happy. And so when I walk into the Stargate audition, he looks at me and he goes, "Hey, it's you. Hey, Chief, how you doing? Hey." And he
That
goes,
Maltese accent.
"Oh my God." He goes, "You'd be perfect for this." And of course, any actor who hears that goes, "Well, I'm in." Right. So
Yeah.
I'm like, "Hey," suddenly I relax. I'm like, "How you
Yeah.
doing?" You know, I sit down to read, and they're feeding me my lines, and I just start going, Chevron 1 encoded, Chevron 2 encoded, Chevron 3 encoded. Like I'm putting all this like spin on all the chevrons. So by the time I get the Chevron 7 locked, I'm full Jerry Lewis. And I actually said, Chevron 7 locked. I That was how I delivered Chevron 7 locked. And I look over and I see Brad Wright sitting at the table, and I swear to God, he would confirm this. Head down on the table and just banging the table with his fist. He's laughing so hard because I'm the only guy who they called in who did anything with it. Everybody else read it like
Straight.
that, straight, and I just like messed around. And then that's what you're talking about, that moment with Mario as I'm leaving, and I'm just full of myself. I'm thinking, oh, I nailed it. And then Mario walks me to the door, which is like unheard of, and I'm saying goodbye, and he's just about to close the door, and I go, so was that in the ballpark? Thinking he's going to go, oh, Chief, you're fantastic. And he goes, yeah, but not that big. And he just closes the door. He's like, yeah, yeah, but not that big. But and I stand in the hallway and I go, not that big. Oh my God, I totally blew it. I'm thinking, what was I thinking? I get a call back. Which I
Wow.
can't believe.
Didn't
And when
totally
I
blow
get
it.
Then yeah, and when I get the call back, and a lot of times, many actors will tell you this: if you get the call back, you think that they want to see what you did again. So when I walked into the callback, Mario now is sitting next to Jonathan Glasner, and Jonathan Glasner is like Easter Island, just like right. I come in, I go, but I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, got a call back. I go, hey Mario, how's it going? And he goes, hello, Chief. Like he doesn't even make eye contact with me. I think he's so scared of
Sit
Jonathan
down.
Glasner. He goes,
Oh boy.
he's just like, hi, Chief. Hello. Yeah, yeah. I'm like, that's weird. So I start reading the same sides. I do Chevron 1. I go, Chevron 1 encoded. Stop. Jonathan Glasner. I'm like, what? He goes, just say the line. Oh, okay. Start again. Chevron 1 encoded. Chevron 2 encoded. Stop. Like, I couldn't help myself. I was thinking, you guys, don't you need me to do it the same way I did it? And he stopped me so, and I just was like, Chevron 1 encoded. Chevron 2 encoded. Chevron 3 encoded. And I just read all of them.
I could have phoned this in
I
over a
could have
phone.
phoned it
Like,
in.
why am I
And
coming in here, sitting down and doing it like that? There's no nuance.
nothing.
Wow.
And then I finished, and Jonathan just goes, "Great, thanks for coming in." And I left. I was like, "Well, there's no way I got that." And then I got it. But it
Hmm.
was It was quite the audition.
That's wild. Maybe they just wanted to make sure that you could do it straight.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about that is full circle. It came back around in the end.
Oh, yeah.
The comedy eventually was allowed to come in when we were in bonus land with season 8 and beyond. You know, I mean, obviously the seed was planted in season 4 with the great scene between the two of you in the alternate future. But sooner or later, they let what you were good at come into play. And that's fun.
And you know what? I have to say, it was the fact that I got to know it. All those guys who were like assistant directors, like Andy Makita and Martin Wood, all those guys moved up through the ranks. So when I was on the show at the beginning, they were ADs. They became directors, producers. So I knew all those guys. Peter DeLuise knew me from doing a show in Vancouver called Star Trek the Musical, where I played Captain Kirk.
Oh my God.
He came and saw it a bunch of times, and he knew that I could do comedy. So Peter would write episodes and give me funny stuff to do. They just knew after a number of years, and that's what I mean. You like to be on a show for 10 years is kind of unheard of now. Like you just don't get
Doesn't happen.
Don't get those. You think of Seinfeld, 9 seasons. My buddy Dean Haglund was on the X-Files for 9 seasons, and then I was on Stargate for 10 seasons. That just doesn't happen anymore.
Mm-hmm. Other than like When Calls the Heart, I can't think of like anything, you know, it just keeps on going and going like that, you know?
And so the chance to be able to flex my comedic chops in a show that was basically a family-oriented action-adventure sci-fi, it was like a complete gift to me, and they trusted me, and they trusted me, and the way I sort of honored that trust was I knew as a comedian predominantly that I could play the comedy, and I was like, okay, they're giving me funny stuff to do. How am I going to play this? Because I could not take more laughs than Rick got. It was
correct.
Like,
no, that was
Rick,
you could not do that.
Rick is the star. Rick, if Rick's going to get funny lines, which he always got, I was like, I can't steal Rick's thunder. So I had to learn to play it in a way that still was funny, but was not taking away from him. And it was a really fantastic exercise for me to sort of navigate this show and figure out where my skill set fit into it, you know, to support it. Yeah, it was pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Speaking on the range of the show, Matthew Hammond wanted to know, did you finish any books while waiting on set over the years, or did you just read magazines from the Mario story that we also told? Were there any books in the mix?
No, it was just magazines. It was just magazines. Is he? I don't know if he's. What's the fan's name?
Matthew Hammond. He's referencing the penny that was thrown at the glass.
Oh God, that was in the 2. Well, that was in the first. That was in the first episode. They just had me sitting in the control room in the dark for hours. After a 6:30 call, and because Mario was just basically, it was a 2-parter. He was trying to put the thing together, and when he finally came into the room, I was so tired. I was so exhausted. My eyes felt like sand, and I thought, okay, I'm just gonna close my eyes for a sec, just to give my eyes a break. And in the 5 seconds that my eyes were closed, Mario looked up, saw me, and threw it like a penny at the glass. And was like, kind of like this, like,
no.
Do you know that I almost got fired?
From that?
Yeah. Did you know that?
Well, the second time, then he did this.
He did I did. And I was like, when he did that first one on the first day, I was so full of adrenaline. Yeah. Like I was so freaked out that I was like, I could see in the dark, right?
I'm not losing this. Yeah.
My eyes automatically got like night vision. And I thought, okay, I'll never do that. And I did it again the next day because I was so exhausted.
Oh, it was a different day.
It was the next day.
Oh no.
It was the second day. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe he saw me with my ex, because he just thought, oh, you're sleeping through my work. I'm trying to put the show together and you're napping. He was pissed off, right? Completely different guy from when I auditioned for him. Anyway, the second day I did it again, and he throws the penny and then he goes like this, like 2 strikes, right? And Ellie Harvey, remember we
Mhm.
talked about this? Ellie Harvey got a call and said, "Hey, go and audition because they're thinking of replacing this guy that's on Stargate."
I
Like,
didn't, if I did, I completely forgot. I didn't
yeah,
know that.
Ellie Harvey,
Wow.
who ended up coming in seasons later and playing Novak. She's a really good friend of mine. Ellie Harvey was one of the 4 actors in World's Greatest Guy that Sean and I wrote. I've known Ellie for a million years. So
She's amazing. She's so
Ellie
funny.
told me that she got a call from her agent saying that they were
Wow.
considering replacing me because Mario was like, get rid of that guy.
Wow.
So I didn't know this, and Brad and the producers said no, we're keeping him. But if it had been up to Mario, I would have been fired.
Man.
Isn't
Well,
that
I'm
wild?
glad we got you both
Yeah.
in the proper
God.
way.
God. Oh my
Jeez,
God.
man.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Oh, and the other story about like a magazine was that there was a big scene once with Ball up in the general's office, the big banquet table, like the General Hammond's table,
oh,
uh,
the meeting room, the briefing room. Yeah.
the briefing room. And Ball was on the screen and he was going to blow up Earth or something. He's like going to destroy Earth. And and
Next, yeah.
and
Next Deus Machina.
I was in that scene, and Peter DeLuise was directing it, and there were like all these military personnel and techies and all this stuff. And I said, "Okay, great, Peter. Like, there's lots of action. What am I doing?" And he goes, "Oh, no, just sit in your seat." And I was like, "Dude, I'm always in the chair. Get me doing something else." He goes, "No, no, 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 you're fine. Just stay in the chair and work at the computer." I was like, "Oh my God!" So because there were so many people in the scene, he had to block it a million times, right? So I just was reading my Vanity Fair, just like I'm just flipping through Vanity Fair, and but I always took a magazine to say, and I
This
was
is
in
the story I was thinking of.
flip flops. I was in a flight suit and flip flops, and so all I would hear was like action, and then they do the scene, block it, and Peter would make his adjustments. They go, okay, going again. And then they'd go, they'd be like, action, going again, action, going again. They did it a bunch of times. And I just started ignoring it. And I was just reading Vanity Fair. And then finally I hear, action, okay, cut, moving on. And I was like, moving on? What? And I see all the crew are just moving equipment out of the room. And I'm like, oh my God. He filmed me and I'm reading a magazine while Ball is threatening to blow up Earth. And I have to go to Peter and say, oh, guys, I have to make this choice, right? Because Peter
Mm-hmm.
earlier on had told me about this thing where he's refer in some other episode, I can't remember, but he goes, I want to do it this way because I don't want to end up in the how come room. And I
Yeah.
go, the how come room? What the heck? What's that? And he goes, well, that's when you go show your rough cut to Brad and the other guy, the other producers, and they just go, how come you shot it like that? How come you used that angle? How come you did this? How come you
How
did that?
come Gary's reading a magazine?
And you don't want to answer those things because it's like you're on trial, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Peter was that stuck in my mind. And I thought, oh my God,
Yep.
if I don't go say something to Peter, he's going to be in the how come room going, how come Gary is reading Vanity Fair in this scene? And so I go up to him and I go, Peter, I hate to say this, we have to shoot that again. He's like, why? And I said, oh God, dude, I was reading a magazine, and he goes, oh yeah, don't worry about that. I got that. Like, it's fine. And I go, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, no, it's okay. It just looks like you're reading a technical manual. I said, okay, so even if I was, I'd be reading a technical manual while Ball is threatening to blow up Earth. He goes, yeah, don't worry about it.
You're doing your job.
And,
Just sit in your chair.
The Earth's about to blow up in 10 minutes, and I'm ordering parts for the Stargate. I'm just checking out the warranty. It's like, I don't know this thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Thomas Dalton wanted to know, in 2010, your character consulted for the SGC in an alternate future. Is that a job, a curator? Is that a job you think you could do in real life?
As you mean, just a curator? Because it was like the Stargate was a museum, right?
Yeah,
right.
SGC was a museum.
And I was the museum. Well, is that a job I could do in real life? Yeah, I could do that. But let me tell you something hilarious about that particular episode that he might not know is the episode where I was named Walter, because Rick and the other SG-1s walk in, and I'm this curator in a suit, and I look at him and I kind of vaguely remember them, and I go, Colonel? And he looks at me and he goes, Walter?
Sergeant.
No, he says Walter.
He says Sergeant, and then they talk a little bit, and then he goes back to you because then he needs something from you, and he goes,
Walter. And I thought, did I misread the script? Is there somebody else behind me named Walter that I'm unaware of? Like, it wasn't in this, and so we did the scene, and and they go up to him afterwards and they go, Rick, that was fine, but just so you know, Gary's character's name is not Walter. And
it's Norman Davis on his name tag.
Yeah, he goes, well, it is now. and then he leaves, and I'm standing there, and they look at me. They literally, the script supervisor looks at me and goes, okay, I guess you're Walter now.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you talking about?
Executive producer has spoken.
Yeah, and he just left, and he's not redoing the scene.
No.
So they added Walter. Then I became, for a while, Norman Walter Davis, and I was like, okay, fine, whatever. But then the whole bus went off a cliff. A bunch of episodes later, when Don S. Davis had to deliver the line, "Open the iris, airman," because I was in the Air Force. And he was standing behind me, and he's like, "Open the iris, airman. Open the iris, airman." They kept getting him to do it over and over and over again. And finally, they sent him away, and they said, it just doesn't sound like airman. It kind of sounds like he's calling him Harriman, because he's like, "Open the iris, Harriman." And so they said, we'll just change your name to Harriman. I was like, okay, this is insanity.
This is insanity.
What are you talking about? I go, I'm already Norman Walter Davis.
Yeah.
And now I'm what? Norman Walter Davis Harriman? And they said, no, we'll just get rid of Norman Davis. And I thought, what show could that ever happen on, where you have the same character, same job, and completely different name? And I have 8x10s with Davis on one and Harriman on the other.
You know what it is, Gary?
They gave me a brand new name tag.
You're a temporal agent who's altering time as you move forward.
Oh yeah, that's what it was.
One more for you, then I'm gonna tear you loose. Chop Low. Did you steal a sarcophagus, Gary? You haven't aged at all.
What?
He thinks you look great.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really good to. Thank you. Yes. I don't know. It's youthful energy, I guess. Yeah, I started back when I started Stargate. It was 1997. 1997. Yeah. So what's that? Almost 30 years ago?
It's going to be 30 years next year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
So I was 38. I was 30. I can't believe it. I was 38 when I started Stargate, and I'm 68 now. And
you don't look it.
No?
No, you look great.
Thank you.
You look sharpie.
I look Sharpie. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, the Stargate was a great run. I mean, the other thing about being on the air that long. Remember when they had to they were celebrating. It was a big deal. They celebrated like the 200th episode.
Hmm?
Remember? Like that was a big deal.
Can
Like
you tell the
what?
story real quick about Comic-Con that we talked about over the phone the other day?
Oh yeah,
I don't
yeah. It
have
was
that as part of the oral history.
Yeah, it was really amazing. They were celebrating the 200th episode. So up in Vancouver at the Bridge Studios, they got some local media in, some newspapers and a couple of radio stations, and very very kind of analog, old school, right? The cast was there in the gate room, and the administration said to me, "Would you wear your flight suit and host the panel and field questions from the media as Walter?" And I said, yeah, in a heartbeat. So because that's my background is stand-up comedy and improv, so I thought, oh, this will be a blast. So I did. It was great. It was really fun because I knew the cast. It wasn't like they didn't know me. We knew
Mm-hmm.
each other, right? So
Fit right
everybody was
in.
around, got lots of laughs, and me being in the flight suit added like this other alternate weird reality to it. And so that went well. And then short time later, the administration came up to me and said, "Hey, we want to know if you'd be willing to go down to San Diego Comic-Con and do the same thing because we're sending the cast down to because it's a big deal in front of the sci-fi community." And I was like, in a heartbeat, I do. And but they said to me, "Would you do the same thing?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, for sure." So they flew me down, and I'm mid-flight to San Diego, and Joe Malazzi turns to me and he says, "So are you kind of nervous about doing this?" And I was like, "Why? No, I'm just doing the same thing in front of a few journalists." And he goes, "Oh no, no, no! It's in front of fans, like 4,000 fans." I was like, they never told me that. They just said, "Can you go do the same thing?"
I.e. host. Yeah.
I.e. host. And I said, and he goes, "So now are you nervous?" And I go, "Oh my God, Joe." I said, I am so pumped. Bring it on." I said, 4,000 people, it will be glorious. And I went down there, and they, inside the cavernous place, they had opened up pulled the wall away. There were like two ballrooms,
Yeah. It's big.
4,000 packed with people. And I got to host in front of 4,000 people, field questions from fans or whatever, have a big laugh with the cast. And that went really, really well. Really, really, really fun. Got tons of laughs. As what a host and an MC should be doing. Years later, I meet a fan at one of the conventions who tells me, she says, "Oh, really loved what you did at Comic
Mm.
Con, when you hosted the panel." And I was like, "Oh, were you there? That's so cool." She goes, "No, no, I wasn't there. It's they put it on the 10th anniversary, like the season 10 when you buy the box set. They put that segment into the special features, and it's in there." She goes, "You can just get the 10th season and watch it." I was like, I had no idea. So fans who got the box set got to actually see me do something outside of my role as Walter, hosting hosting in front of 4,000 people, getting big laughs, and connecting with the cast, fielding questions. It was one of the funnest gigs I'd ever done because I host. I mean, that's another thing I do up here in Vancouver. I've hosted so many events, and they have a thing here called the Leo Awards, which is like
Mm-hmm.
BC Television and Film Industry Awards. I've hosted that show like nine. I've hosted it more than anybody
More
else,
than anybody
like
else.
nine
That's
nine
wild.
times. Yeah, I'm no and Creation, when Creation was doing the Chicago gigs, they got around to eventually saying, "Can you host the weekend?" They would get me to host the weekend.
MC.
And there was a woman then in Jane Lowther in the UK who did these big events at Basingstoke. She had come and seen me host in Chicago, and I got another hosting gig, like to go to the UK and host those things for the weekend. I got to interview David Tennant and or Rhys Darby from like Rhys Darby. It was like, it was like so yeah. So a lot of fans don't know that until they see me on stage and they go, oh, he can do that as well. So that was really special to me to be able to go down and the chance to interview in front of 4,000 people was like amazing.
Mind-boggling. So, yeah. I'd love to see you MC the Gate Cruise that's coming up in January.
Oh, the Gate Cruise, like
yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's just.
Give me a 1 in the chat if you think that Gary should MC the Gate Cruise in January. Come on, people.
Because hosting on a cruise is in my wheelhouse.
Exactly. No, absolutely. If you can stand in front of Ballroom 20 and 4,500 people, you can easily stand in front of a room of 1,000 fans on a cruise ship. There are nearly at 1,000 now on Gate Cruise. It's absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. Wow. Gatecruise.com. There's just a few spots left.
Oh yeah. I'd give anything to host on a cruise like that, because I know all the cast and the fans know me, and hosting is just, it's so second nature to me. But yeah, if the fans ever wanted me to do that, I would, I always show up. So I love it. I have the best time. So.
Yeah, you know everybody, so it makes a lot of sense. Dude, this is great. Can I have room for one more question from a fan?
Yeah.
Matthew Hammond, what did you think of being turned into a marionette in 200? Wasn't that wild?
It was. One of the questions I get asked all the time is people say, "Hey, did you get to keep the puppet?" I'm like, no.
Did you even get to see the puppet? The puppet was shot in LA.
It was. What happened was I didn't know how they would shoot it. And they shot it in a certain way. I think some green screen, or I think there was green screen, and we had to just shoot it in a way that then they would transpose it, and they gave the footage to the people who did Team America, and they made the stuff. So I wasn't there when they did it, but I just remember having to act like we were marionettes
for the reference material, and then they shot clean plates, and then they put the two together with the puppet
with Don.
Wild.
Don and I standing, and him going, "Make it spin. Spinning is good."
Spinning is so much cooler than not spinning. It has to spin. It's round.
And me going, "I feel so stupid." It was fun. So it was a blast doing the 200th episode. Man. At the end, when they say, "Come on, Walter, come and join us," and I head off.
I don't have the right outfit.
I'm not in the right outfit, and they were like, "We want you in kind of real time, as close to real time, to leave the control room and come into the gate room fully kitted out." And you know what? All the years in theater paid off, because whenever you do a play and you have to make a quick change, you have to run into the wings, get
costume
put a
change,
plate on, get a costume change, and come back in super fast. And any actor will tell you this. Every play they go into where they go, "We need you back on stage in like 10 seconds. At first day you go, "I can't do it. It's impossible. There's no way." And then you just work it out with all the people. So I took my experience working in theater, and I said to the costume people, "Okay, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have my boots ready. I'm going to be up in the control room in flip-flops, in bare feet, and as I leave, I'm going to walk down, and I'm going to be taking I'm going to be underdressed and taking my what do you call it? My flight suit off.
Flight suit, yeah, because the camera's waiting on you in position.
It's locked, but it's only locked for they only want to lock it for like a few seconds. So I literally, as I'm putting the jacket on, somebody's zipping up the Kevlar vest, handing me my gun, stick a helmet on me, and then I just come running around the corner like out of breath, like I've just changed. It was so cool to see that. And we did it a few times to figure out who was going to put my helmet on, who was going to hold the jacket, who's going to hand me the gun. And we just did it like that. Did it a few times, walked through it, and then we said, okay, let's go. Let's do it super fast. And that's how you see me leave in one outfit and walk around and come in another. It was amazing,
That's just wild.
And I really I'm so thankful for my theater experience to be able to understand how you can do that. And I could kind of take charge of it. Like I basically told the costume people, this is how we're going to do this.
Yeah, that's wild, man.
Cool. Yeah.
Gary, always a pleasure to hang out with you.
Oh, David, come on.
Your family at this point, just thank you so much for spending some time. And I'm going to wrap up the show on this end, and I'll give you a ring in a little bit.
Okay, that'd be great.
So
fantastic. Thank you to all the fans for listening in and asking questions. And I'm always happy to talk to fans. Did you know I'm on Cameo too? Like
what's your Cameo? I didn't know this.
I do. I'm on Cameo.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Hang on just a second here. Let's plug that. I'll also put a link in the description below for everybody. Here we go, everyone.
Yeah.
All right. Very, very nice. Okay.
And, those are really fun to do too. And,
those are a hoot.
Yeah.
There's an art to this too, because it's just putting in information in your head and making sure that you deliver what the fan wants. Yeah. So that's
and I'll tell you, the fans ask for the bare minimum. Oh, could you wish so-and-so a happy birthday? And I always, my cameos are long. They're like 5 minutes. I just tell stories and I try to connect even though I'm just talking into my phone. But I've just gotten such great feedback from the fans because I try to go above and beyond what they've asked for. So, yeah.
Awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, we'll put a link in the description below. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, David. Wonderful to see you.
Good to see you. I'll be in touch really soon here.
Okay. Take care, my man.
Thanks, man. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
That's Gary Jones, everyone. Chief Master Sergeant Walter Harriman in Stargate SG-1. My name is David Reed. You're watching the Stargate Oral History Project. If you liked what you see, give us a like. It does help the show. Will continue to help us grow our audience. If you have a Stargate friend out there who you think would enjoy some of this content, go ahead and share the show with them. And if you want to get notified about future episodes, click the subscribe icon. I cannot do this show in a vacuum. I am so thankful for the support that I have been given through so many of you on Patreon. It has made the difference to continue to pull this show off. I was in a very different space earlier this year. There were just a lot of things moving around. At that point, we still had the plan of another Stargate series, and now that's no longer here. And just I have no words other than just gratitude and appreciation for everyone who has stuck through the process. We're going to continue to create new content for Dial the Gate, even though Shanks and I are also adding the new show on the side, and it's going to be it's going to be pretty special. Someone asked, let me see here real quick. I've definitely got a couple of questions for me. Gate travelers, have you been asked about Gate Traveler, yeah. We're very curious. When will we hear the name of the podcast? Do I want to say? How badly do I want to nail myself down for this? Look around Dragon Con. So the plan is to record that announcement 2 Wednesdays from now. The plan is, so we'll see. I'm very happy with the name. I'm very happy with the artwork that's come out from it. We've got a guy building visual effects for the opening sequence right now. And then I have a composer who's making a first draft of the music that is heavily inspired by M83, one of my favorite artists. I'll just say that. So I had a bit of a brainwave while I was at the drumline competition for my godson. It's like, I think I've got it. If this is the name for the show, then this is the tone for the project. So that's the game plan. Someone was asking about who was it that was concerned with. See if I can find this here. Choplo7. I've been scared of cruises, people getting sick. They have a patch that you put behind your ear now for seasickness that eases that. It's not a problem. So I'm not sure I think your doctors can prescribe them. So if that's you, get one of those, go into a dinghy and see if you're good, then you know you're good for the boat. The boat, it's not really like that. And if that's for you, put yourself in the middle high of the boat, midship, higher deck. You don't feel anything. It's fine. But I can tell you, like, my folks are going to be going to this one, and that'll be their 17th or 18th cruise. They got the bug, and that was it. Like, it's a great experience. So gatecruise.com. Link in the description below. I'm going to be there making some stuff happen with Michael Shanks and a couple of others. This is going to be a really cool event, and it's almost completely sold out. So that's what we've got for you for this episode. Next week, next Saturday at noon Pacific time. This is going to be the 29th. Dion Johnstone, Chaka, Warwick, Wodan, Lieutenant Tyler, he's back for another hour. This is a pre-recorded show. We've already got it filmed, and he was a great time. He's also in the Steel Magnolias right now, and we'll talk about that show a little bit. That's a good interview, and that's going to be heading your way soon. I can't thank my moderating team enough. These guys, you are all amazing. Anthony, Marsha, Enigma, Lockwatcher, Raj, Jacob, Stephen. They're the true heart and soul of this team. Matt, Eagle SG Wilson, thank you, Matt, for the O'Neill flying by in the opening. We finally got the guns correct. It was just the regular O'Neill class before with no guns at the bottom. I think that was the one from Revelations, but we got the O'Neill from Divide. No, is it Divide and Conquer? No, it's Small Victories. That's the one. So Frederick Marcoux at Concepts Web, who keeps dialthegate.com up and running. Venture Pictures does a lot of our visuals as well. This is a great team. I am so thankful for all of these folks for continuing to make this show possible week in and week out. So that's what we're going to end the show with. My name is David Reed for Dial the Gate. I appreciate you all tuning in live and making a great time for Gary and myself and the team. I'll see you on the other side.